So I know what you're thinking. Car Wizard has a Saab story for us today. Wrong. I actually have two. Let's get started. This is a 2011 Saab 9.5 Aero. We haven't seen a whole lot of Saabs in the shop. And yes, like I mentioned, we have a Saab story today. It's kind of sad. Actually, two stories. We've been trying to contact the customer. We got an estimate together for them, and then I believe once we get them the total, what it's going to cost to fix this, they too will be sobbing. Ha 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 ha. Before we dive into what's wrong with it, let's go and do the quick look around, and then you're going to find out that the problems we have here are General Motors problems. Oh my goodness, Mrs. Wizard, did they hit an entire swarm of flies or something?
It's something like that.
It's like
my.
They painted the car with a wrap that has bug guts. It's pretty dirty.
I guess that's the bug's life.
So that's the first sob story, the death of so many bugs.
But at least they're not bothering them at their house.
That's true. So like I mentioned, it's a 2011 Saab 9.5 Aero Turbo 6 XWD, or all-wheel drive. The 9.5 is an executive mid-size luxury car. The second gen 9.5 got a new look when Saab was no longer under the management of GM, but under Spyker control. Nonetheless, the car is still built on the Epsilon 2 platform, which is the same as the Buick Regal and the Chevy Malibu. It also shares engines with the Cadillac SRX and the Regal. The car cost about $50,000 in 2011, which seemed high at the time for a Saab. It was in the ballpark of a BMW 530 or a Mercedes E350. There were 2,765 9.5s produced for the USA market that year. Only 390 were the Aero package. Let's go ahead and jump under the hood. So go ahead and open this hood, and we're going to use this little tool we have on my Amazon affiliates link, which is definitely a wonderful tool to have, because I would say out of every 10 cars that come in any shop, not just here, out of every 10, probably 6 of them have this. The struts are blown out. So you go ahead and clamp this on. You're not going to damage it because it's already damaged. It's already failed, so it doesn't matter anymore. You clamp it on, and it holds. This one has the 2.8 liter turbo V6. It's got 300 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 in 6.9. 16 miles per gallon in the city and 27 on the highway. And yes, this is a General Motors V6. How many of you out there have a Cadillac SRX or a Buick Enclave or a GMC Acadia or any of the cars with the crappy GM 3.6 with bad timing chain problems that's an engine out job just to change out the timing chains, and it's always $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to fix the problem? This is exactly the engine we're looking at. It's just not a 3.6. GM made the high feature V6, which is 2.8, 3.0, 3.2, and 3.6. There are various different displacements, but they all have the same problems. Let me show you some of the codes that we found. So I have two sets of codes. The first one here being a P0017, crankshaft position, camshaft correlation. Not plausible. We also have an underboost problem with the turbo, which is because the timing is so far off. We have P0008 and P009, which is also the engine position system, which is basically cam crank correlation, things like that going on. So many of you out there have had the cars I just mentioned, SRX, Acadia, Enclave, things of that nature, or cars of that nature, I should say, and you probably have seen those codes. And when you see those codes, it's a sob story. It's literally cry, because it's going to not be $500 to fix it, multiple thousands of dollars to fix it. Here's a picture of what it takes to fix these, and it's an engine out job. Some people say they can do them in the car, but it takes twice as long. Yes, it can be done, but if you drop the cradle just a little ways, you can really get to everything and just knock it out quicker. So let's take a look in the engine bay, and I'll show you kind of the area where we'll be. So as you can see, there's an air intake duct but there's all kinds of coolant lines and pipes, and it's right up against the wheel well there. And it's just tons and tons of stuff in the way. It's really hard to get to it, but that is the front of the engine.
Okay, Wizard, but so many of them are done through the wheel well. Why can't we do it through the wheel well of this car?
Because the wheel well doesn't come out like some vehicles and leave a large open hole. This one's solid metal, part of the body, and it doesn't come out. I think the book time on it is 25, 35 hours, depends on how far you're going and what all parts and pieces you're replacing, but it is a big, big job. This one's a turbo, which some of the ones I just mentioned are not turbocharged, but that doesn't change the fact that the camshafts have problems. So I got this on the 4-post lift. Let's get this thing in the air. I got a few things I want to show you guys. So while we're up front, let's take a quick look. We can see our radiator core support and our intercooler and all the things going on there. Everything seems to be pretty dry there. Everything looks pretty good over there as well. So we do see some oil leak going on, and if you trace it all the way up, it's up to the power steering pump areas where it's coming from. Pretty yucky. It's kind of blowing all over the chassis here. Here's our little transfer case that goes to the rear diff. Here's the front transaxle. That makes it an all-wheel drive. Everything's good there. Looks like they hit a few things and scraped the flex coupling there. Brake pads are about half gone. CV boots look good. I really can't do the wiggle test or anything on it today because our other lifts are tied up, but we will do a test before it leaves. Brakes are half gone. I don't see any fluids or blown shocks or anything. And we come back to the rear differential, which looks like a complex little unit. Haldex. That's the same company that made the rear differential on your Discovery Sport you had, Mrs. Wizard.
Was it?
Yep. It may even be the same differential. These are nice, beefy control arms, cast. You can see the General Motors emblem there. This car is all about GM. CV boots look good there. Brakes are half gone. This has some kind of Magna Ride on it, which would be expensive if those were bad. Same over here. Brakes are 50%. No bad CV boots. So I wondered why it was kind of loud when I first started it to move it over to the lift. And now we see why. No muffler Newton. Well, these people aren't from Newton, but it's literally gone. They're just, someone hacked them. Clean off. Interesting. At least they still have the exit ports here, Mrs. Wizard.
Well, I guess there's no pipes coming out to even make them look fake like the last one.
Yeah, and you can see where they would have mounted, the little mounts there. Well, let's get this thing back on the ground. So now it's back on the ground. One thing I definitely noticed when I pulled this onto the lift is extended crank time. It's very likely because the cams are so far out of time due to the stretched timing chains that cylinder pressures are low, which also explains why it has an underboost code, because the engine's just not timed correctly right now and it's not putting out the power it should. General Motors actually purchased Saab in 2000, and then they got rid of Saab in 2010 to the Spiker company. They went another year till 2012, and then Saab was gone. So they're really cool cars, they're really nice, but unfortunately in this situation, it's going to be very, very expensive to fix what's going on here. Very likely 4 or 5 grand. It could be less, it could be more. I don't know what we're going to find. As you can see, when we were looking around the car, there's been some things modified on this car. When I see those things, it's a very good key indicator that when we start taking things apart, we might find some surprises, which could make the price go up. So it's kind of hard to know exactly what it's going to be. But I know this much. For 8 grand, 9 grand, you can get a really nice 9.5 Aero on Facebook Marketplace that doesn't need all this work. Is it really worth putting almost 6 or 5 or whatever into fixing this one? And the answer is probably not. We'll definitely let the customer know and see what they want to do, but we're probably going to persuade them that it's probably not worth it we would probably not be interested in going that far on this car. It's a sad story. It is a Saab story. It is a Saab. I know in my years at a shop not too far from here, when I was a mechanic and not a shop owner, we went through tons of Acadia, Enclave, and all these timing chains over and over. I actually had a bay, my own little bay, and there was, for about a month or two, I just knocked out timing chains left and right. I just recently checked on Identifix, and just typed in those codes, P0017, 0008, 9, and all that, on the SRX, Acadia, all those cars I keep listing. Thousands of engines have had to have that situation taken care of, expensive repairs. Some people have commented, well, I have one of those, mine hasn't done that, so you're incorrect, Car Wizard. Just because you have one case of one car that was actually good, doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. There's thousands of these on the road with these problems. Some have been fixed, some will need to be fixed, just like the situation here.
And it's so sad that these are the engines that followed the fabulous, ever so great 3.8.
Yeah, if they would have stayed with 3.8 and modified it to meet some of the power or emissions or things, I think that would have been a better deal. I don't think they made a good call by moving to this high feature V6. It's junk. It is literally junk. I was talking to Grimes, who diagnosed this actually, and when we opened the hood, he goes, oh God, it's a high feature V6. He goes, I already know the timing chains are stretched. And sure enough, we checked the codes, and we verified with the data, yep, exactly as he thought. So if you're curious what kind of tools we use in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut, and we really appreciate it. Also check out Mrs. Wizard's Ways in the description below as well. She's got some videos coming out, some updates. And hit the subscribe button here as well, because we are getting full of cars, which means more videos for you guys. Thanks for watching.